So today, I'm actually back in the studio. I haven't been for a long time. I just talked with the manager, the owner of the studio, and he said, where have you been? And actually, we were just talking about that I was caught up in the digital world like many others. And then Lauren, I had a conversation with, and we agreed very quickly, if we're doing this interview, we need to meet because Lauren also has a reason to come back to Brighton. I don't know if we come into that today, but you definitely have roots here. So I'm super excited for us to sit down and have this conversation about how can we actually, make the industry or actually take examples from the industry of how to create a great workplace and actually do it more and more of it. So we actually become this great place to work because we both have this really high love for this industry, but we also know that the people thing, there's challenges, not enough people, but also when we have them, they sometimes leave quicker than they actually came in the door. And Lauren will talk about her experience, but also we're going to talk about her wonderful business and where she is trying to lead with an example of how things could be done. So, welcome to the show,
Thank
Lauren.
you very much for having me. I'm excited.
And thank you for taking the journey across the coast, or not across the coast, down the coast.
Along the coast. Exactly.
From
Scenic
Hastings.
route, exactly, from Hastings,
Lauren, for the audience that hasn't met you, and you were actually recommended by another guest, Madeline, which was also on the show a couple of months ago. And he said that you have a very, very important message to share with the industry. So we really up for some good stuff. But for people that doesn't know who you are, what you do, can you just talk a bit about like your background, your journey, and what you're doing today?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So sort of you say baptised to Brighton. Yeah, a lot of my career was here. I started, like many others, part-time Pizza Express in the neighbouring town Eastbourne and, all the by-accident stuff. So I went to university, studied at Pizza Express alongside that. I ended up 10 years with Pizza Express in total. Throughout management, graduated from university with my PR degree, not knowing what I wanted to do. And I mean, literally, I feel like I don't even need to complete the sentence because everyone knows you just end up slipping into restaurant management and loving it, actually. So yeah, that's not always everyone's story, but it certainly was mine. So yeah, 10 years with Pizza Express, a business that, to be honest, set me up with, I think, all the warmth and care and kindness and warm culture that I needed to kind of tackle the rest of my career. And, as a business, it was the biggest business I've ever worked in, 375 restaurants. But I felt like super valued, super important. And yeah, I think that's an art to get a business of that size that still makes you feel that way throughout all different junctures of your life and still have you feel that way after 10 years. I then decided to take the leap and move, and absolutely hated my next place. Completely different in terms of culture, also branded, just wasn't my gig whatsoever. It's a complete contrast. So again, how can two bigger style businesses do things so differently? But yeah, they really did. But I did my 18 months in that role just to ensure that I'd, back then it used to be you had to do 18 months to say I've done my bit before I went on to into an operations role. So I'd been a GM for a few years and moved into a more grab-and-go operations position at a pretty young age for ops, really, at like 26. So really young. I did, again, another 18 months. That business was a little bit rocky. But I did my 18 months before joining Everyman Cinemas, which was, I forget, 6 years. I think I was there in total, 5-6 years. As operations manager, then most of it was as head of operations. So I looked after 1,000 employees by the time I left, something like that. We grew the cinemas from, I actually really rocky on these numbers now, it's been a while, so it's 12 to 20 cinemas I think I did. So national expansion, really lovely, and I couldn't have loved a job any more than that, to be honest. So yeah, I was, that taught me a great deal. So much that I knew now that I wish I'd known then about what good culture looks like, because I was winging it. I think we were all winging it at the time. I think. Yeah. God, I mean, I was 21 when I first became a GM. So if anyone's winging it, 21-year-olds really are in terms of how to look after people. Yeah. And that's the sort of lead up to 2018 when I started my own business at home. Yeah.
And what did that business do?
So yeah, we're very small. Well, there's actually 6 of us, which is crazy now. But we have been essentially one a year growth. And that's been nice and consistent and organic. And but I think we're pretty set for the time now. I'm pretty happy with my lot now. Having just recently had lovely Lily join us a month ago. We are a small recruitment business that, headhunters, recruitment support for other small businesses, essentially. So we work alongside owners to help them build their business people-wise. And we do have a lot of one-site owners. That's our potentially 2, and our max that we look after is 4 or 5, and that's it really. So our thing is that we work with that owner. So we know exactly what it's like. That's the problem with what's made me, having weirdly come from a branded business, but not want to work with branded business in this job. It's strange because I actually love them. And that feels like, as a manager, I think I'd probably still enjoy that. But as a recruitment business, when you introduce people to a much bigger business, you don't have any real assurance of what their experience will be like, because people change, people above them change, people move. It only takes you to be managed by one unknown or not great person for your whole experience to be completely different. And so the consistency of knowing the owner and actually being able to be completely honest about what it's like to work in this small business, because the owner's not going anywhere, is great. So yeah, that's what we do. Well, there's 4 of us in the recruitment team, and then Luca, who is our marketing manager. Which is kind of crazy. It was a big move for us to bring on a marketing manager, but our whole network is built on Instagram, so it became essential. So we have, in total, about 18,000 followers across our 2 pages, but also 14,000 strong newsletter database that we kind of do weekly Substacks to and stuff like that. Marketing manager became a bit essential actually for the day-to-day.
Yeah, and you should sign up for the newsletter. What I say, that's some really, really interesting perspective, and we're gonna go into that, because actually one of the reasons you sit here is actually you have a different view, and also your customers, when you start looking at them. One of my really crazy obsession is to look in why some win and others, and why some are maverick or not. You can see they have this maverick touch. They have a specific reason why they built their restaurant. They're serving community, they're serving their people, they're serving the planet, and of course they need to make a business out of it. But you can see there's that typical, these, when I was looking at it before our interview, is there a specific client as well? You say that lives that and breathe that. Is that really important for you, or is that just by accident that has happened, or have you been looking for that?
Just butted in. But I think essentially the most important things is like values. And so if they have strong values when it comes to product quality, sustainability, then that is going to live through to people. That sounds kind of cheesy, but it's if I'm really proud of who we get to work with, but lots of places are sustainable on the food front and on the label and on the shop front, but like truly inside it doesn't live and breathe that at all. And so luckily we get to kind of sort through some of that noise and just work with the ones that, and we do have a type in terms of style of restaurant, which is completely coincidental maybe, or it's because it's exactly where we love to eat, which is really, quality led, a lot of natural wine, but also just a lot of good wine, and London, but all over London. We also do now have quite a thing for these outer London rural spots. So Lewis, Shropshire, Margate, all different parts of really rural England, actually. Because now owners, we've built this reputation for being able to find people wanting to leave London and move to middle of nowhere and cook delicious food and have a kitchen garden and like have a vineyard even. And so that's our type. And it brings really chefy chefs, like really produce-led chefs, and really, sustainably focused or quality-focused management. So that is our type, not on purpose. And we are open-minded to the styles of food and drink that we have. We're not only looking to work with the most coolest roster of restaurants, actually, most importantly, well, we've got lots of restaurants that wouldn't class themselves as super, super cool, but essentially always have the same thing in common, that their people are well looked after.
And what problem is that you're trying to solve as you're relatively small business, but you are solving probably some kind of interesting problem when you start looking at your website? I can definitely see you are not just doing recruitment. It doesn't feel like it's just for the sake of recruitment, but what is actually the mission?
Well, the mission is actually our mission. We are, I believe, at our current perfect size, and I don't have a mission as a business to grow to any hugely bigger scale than where we are, because at the point where we became too big, we wouldn't be able to maintain the things that are important, which is consistently saying no to businesses that are way off when it comes to values alignment. And that's something that we do regularly. We are lucky enough to be able to say, to pick the ones that we want to work with. And obviously the bigger we get, that would become more difficult. So that's important. The mission is essentially just to craft a curated list of lovely businesses that you can then look at as a showcase for others. And the biggest thing for home that's most important is that there's a lot of negative out there, a lot of owner bashing, a lot of, disgruntled ex-employees. There's a lot of negativity about the industry, and actually the most important thing that we continue to do through our social media, but in any of our messaging, hopefully, is staying positive and also showing what good looks like. And so it's the showcase. It's like, this is what small independents without backing. Also, it's not just about the big, well-backed independents, because we also work with them, but the tiny little independent in a small town, what they can do with people without cash. And that's, it's not always huge budget people strategies. It's just tiny ways of working and ways of acting. And so, our mission is to just continue to discuss and showcase what good people management looks like, good culture.
And what is the core elements in that, in your view? What is in your view the tenets or the principles of good people management? Because in principle, it shouldn't cost anything, in my view. I totally agree with you. You don't need a fancy people strategy. You might need that when you start to have +5 sites and so on. Then you need to uniform some things, because else you can't manage it. But in general, it's almost free. You can almost do it from day one.
I think so, but I think it looks completely different to everybody. So I don't think there's uniform standards for there's uniform measures like team turnover and people just sticking around and great customer service and good spend per head. But just in terms of real principles, everybody wants something different from this industry. So I don't think that you can just say that communication is really, really important. Personally, the reason why I talked about my next business after Pizza Express being so wrong for me was that it was so hierarchical, and it was the us and them, and it was the bosses and the people underneath. And that for me personally is like one of the worst feelings as an employee, the us and them. So, but that might not be this, and it certainly wasn't in that business I sort of talking about. Other people were really, really happy, genuine, and you were paid fantastically. The bonuses were incredible, and the work-life balance was good. So it ticked many boxes, but just didn't feel right for me. But others felt great. So actually, it's difficult to put a one-size-fits-all. It's certainly definitely about communication, and it's definitely about in the individual approach, seeing who wants to progress, seeing who doesn't, who's coming here just to tick the box to get paid. It was, but as luckily working with small business is quite easy to do that, to have that open conversation with everybody. But as you get bigger, as you say, it might need something a little bit more.
Yeah. And I think that's again is also different. How you do it. How do you actually live these principles? It's quite interesting. I don't know if Phil said it this way. So Phil Eels from Honest Burger, and now Brett Stoll was on the show. He's coming out actually today as we're talking. And he talked a lot about, actually it's very simple, the way we always talk about how we want customers to have a great experience and how we want to feel. We need to go and do the same for our employees. And that also means that it's not a one fit size. It's not all, we can't systemize everything.
Yeah.
As we grow, we might need to, some things, payroll, but actually how we treat people becomes much about their hospitality experience to them, the humanity we're showing to them. And that's where it becomes a very special place in itself. That's hard to copy. It's not like something you scale. Or lots of people talks about how they want to scale this, but it's really hard to scale these things. And it should not be scaled always. This is a very interesting view.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, there's, as I said, positive experiences can be had, like I had in a huge business where it's done well, but there would have been people in that same business feeling not the same, So it's definitely about communication in the small ones. It's very easy and you've got a hold over it all. So yeah, I feel like it definitely differs on business size and individuals within it.
And what the typical, of course, you do the recruitment for these small businesses, but how do you actually work with them? Because I guess it's a different relationship because you talk straight away about it's important, values is important. So I guess you get very close to these businesses. Yeah,
actually, that is true. It's not the same with everyone. We do have genuine, I'd like you to help me to find some people, and we find the people. And it's like, we know they're good businesses and people thrive in them, and we can literally witness people growing their careers and enjoying it. But other projects are more personal, much more. Hayley's recently opened a new wine bar in de Beauvoir, wonderful one, and that's been her project it was a full year's work. 8 managers that opened this. So she built a project herself, people-wise, from the off, the entire management team. And she's really close to it, and it meant a lot, and it means a lot to her. And the owner and her have, it's like a daily relationship for a year. I have the same with the recent opening, which isn't open yet, opens next month. But I feel like you're almost part of the team because I have genuinely been so close to the owner and actually the point of it is, these owners who are building a business, it's their first ever business, first restaurant. And we enjoy the process together. Like it should be a really magical part of it, building your team. These people are going to become your everyday. And so in the lead up, it's supposed to be fun. And so that's kind of nice in the sense that actually we do work really closely. There's a lot of honesty, a lot of transparency. But yeah, we know the people also who we're putting forward. We've known them for quite a number of years, a lot of them. And so it's a real honest accounts and connections that are quite considered. But yeah, we are pretty involved. There's also quite a lot of owners who've never worked in the industry before because they're taking sides. We're a lot of that. We have a lot of businesses who've come from marketing, the city, and they want to get in the food and restaurant industry, and it's a passion. And you sometimes think, God, to turn around and go the other way, you must be mad. But at the same time, you can see their real passion, and it's been a project that they've wanted to do for a long time. But then in that instance, there's quite a lot of coaching that goes on because they're just like, where do I even start? And so they come to us because we can give back that recommendations of essentially who to recruit, like what levels, what you should call it, what you should pay them. There's a lot of that, and throughout the process, once they're open, there's a lot of advice giving and coaching throughout.
What has been one of the biggest learning being so close? Because I guess that's an element where you're doing the recruitment job, but again, you can almost get too close as well. So you get too involved. Like, what has your learning been in that? Or is there not?
Well, other than the fact I dream about these places, like honestly, Hayley or anyone in my team will just say, I just had the weirdest dream. She'll say, oh my God, me too. And they didn't like their job. Other than that, I don't see any necessary bad things so far with being close. Obviously if something doesn't work out, it hurts a lot more and you feel it a lot more. I'm learning over time to not worry so much if something every now and again doesn't work out, because that's life. But yeah, it just means the closer you are, the more it is a shame if it doesn't work. But luckily, touch wood, it's infrequent.
What is typical that makes them come to you? Because I can definitely see the benefit of, because opening your first restaurant or opening any restaurant, recruitment is, in my view, and still is, the hardest. And other people who have a different view, they will say it's harder. I think getting a restaurant ready has a process. The people bit, in my view, is also the hardest, but the most important, because that team set the energy levels that's going to be there from day one, and their ability to go through all the obstacles that comes the first let's just say 6 months of any new place.
Exactly. And so what was the question?
So what has, what is the learnings around not being so close to that and actually helping them doing that? Have you seen that has been super helpful for them, that they come to you, and why do you think they come to you?
Yeah, well, I mean, a lot of it is startups. So, from the off, let's start this from the very, they come to us, way before PR businesses or, we know about really exciting projects quite earlier than anyone else, basically. And they come to us because they know that, or they've heard that luckily we are all word of mouth now. So it's lucky we're in a position where we are discussed amongst other founders and things like that. So it's coming to us because they've heard that we are good at what we do, but also that, we will give that honest appraisal of levels. And it's sort of, people come to us, where do I even start here? And we say, okay, fine, let's start from the beginning. What do you need to serve? What do you want to do? What's your goal? What's your ethos? Okay, fine, I feel like you're going to need this, that and the other. Another part of it is that we are smaller in our fees as well as our size than other big recruitment agencies. We have to be, otherwise we wouldn't be able to work with the smaller independent, the owner operated businesses, and we wouldn't be able to put 8 people into a new business if we were to go along the route of huge fees. So we try and keep it as low as we can. We've got no office. We try and keep our fees, the cost as low as possible.
And the interesting thing is that you want to work with the operators that is value aligned how you think, but also you live these values quite well and how you structured the business. You're already talking a bit about now we don't have an office. Can you talk a bit about how you structured the culture, the rules of engagement in your team?
My team, yeah, fine. Well, I mean, I, as I said, have organically grown 1 employee a year. It started with just me on my own. And I had a 4-day week then because my my oldest wasn't at school. So I used to spend Fridays with him. So I've made sure that we've carried that on throughout the recruitment process. All of my team do a 4-day week, and that's all Monday to Thursday. So they have the Friday, Saturday, Sunday off, and then I ensure that they can just do whatever hours, do their hours within those initial Monday to Thursday whenever they want, so they can pick up their kids and, pick up hours where they want, where it suits their lives. And also most of my team are moving out of London to work remotely from places where they can afford, they're back to their hometowns or whatever. Hayley lives down in Brighton and I've moved to the South Coast as well, because luckily we can do most of the job from home. But I mean, it's just try to practice what I preach, exactly that, in the hope that, obviously the output of the business is good, that it feels good, people are happy to be there, and they also get plenty of downtime. They have work phones, so they switch them off when they're not there, when they're not working. And so, there's a real shut off. Must work better on myself doing that.
We'll come back to that thing. So what have you seen doing that? Because that's quite a radical decision, and also customers can't get hold of anyone on a Friday.
Well, it's all right because everything is handed over perfectly at the end of a Thursday day. The employees, the candidates or potential employees, partners, the businesses, they just know that they don't work on Fridays. Like nothing's going to happen. That we'll always connect them directly if they're meeting, so they will be able to ring each other. But I think that everyone would appreciate that their time off is valuable, and so pick it up on a Monday, and nothing's going to blow up.
And what about like on a results side for your business as having that as a principle? You can say maybe you made it almost sound like it was engineered by accident, but in a way it sounds like a very great way of doing things. But what have the results been for you? Have you seen over those 6 years? Can you see there's a different?
I honestly don't know because I don't know any different. And I think that's so much easier to have started the business in that sense. So I don't have to backtrack and try and implement a 4-day week, because I'm sure then at that stage I'd say I'm really feeling that missing day because I'd had it. I've never had it. So my team, I believe, have more time. Well, they have more time with their children, those who have them. Those who don't have more time to rest and do their hobbies or their side hustles or, running or whatever. So I believe that I've got the most incredible team with the most unbelievable background. All of them are highly skilled, qualification ridden, and they're extremely talented. So I think that's the result, is that I've managed to employ some of the best people I could ever have asked for. And probably, I think a lot of it is, yes, the work and of course my leadership, but mainly as well the good working week.
Yeah, it was really interesting. You said also they could have that side hustle, and you don't see that as a problem, that they go and do a side hustle.
If it was recruitment with another business outside of that, no. I think, Charlotte's got a diploma in wine. She would miss it massively if she didn't still have a finger in that. Yeah. And as I said, parenting and other side hustles also. So whatever. I also like to... Well, I don't actually really know what my side hustles are, but again, parenting, bit of running.
That's quite of a side hustle. And do you think, because I've heard many different things, and some people are very honest and say it's very hard to find people still, and the people challenge is still real. It's not going away. If not, it's actually become more deep and, almost systemic in some ways. But what is your view? Because you sit with it every day and you hear operators talking about specifically this challenge.
A mixed bag. So certainly nothing for me feels anything like it did 2 years ago, or like post-COVID, when it was just real level of negativity around everything, and it was just felt like an exodus, and we were just clinging on anyone but now I think the real measure actually was this week when someone asked me about who's doing visas, because we've got a list of which of our partners offer visas, normally only for senior roles, but even still it's always been very handy because people come to us needing a sponsorship visa. And I was just looking and said, actually barely any are now going to be willing, because actually you can tell now that actually they're not relying on that as much, and actually they're able to fill the roles where they weren't before. Senior management, kitchen, front of house, actually there just feels like a much less need to sponsor, basically. So I feel like it, and in the last 3 years our personal network has grown so considerably, and so it's hard for me to get the gauge. But I would say the problem I think, is there's not an obvious place to advertise anymore. Like there was a job board that felt like the place to advertise before, and now it's just sort of Indeed. And there's a lot of unreliable people out there. And so I think people often will come to us saying, I just can't find anyone. But it's almost not really they put it on their Instagram and then maybe on Indeed, and it hasn't been fruitful. And then they feel like no one's willing to turn up to interviews, or they're not reliable. But then obviously our network are they're in it for the right reasons, and so they are reliable. And so I feel like it's quite a trusted network. And so normally when we put people forward, they're going to be right. There's not going to be that kind of constant, owners don't have time for interviewing and missing people not showing up and planning things. And I think that's some of the problem that people face, just the inconsistency.
So you actually say there's two camps almost. There's some operators, they're all good because they are the kind of operator they are, like many of your clients are. And then there's the others that will struggle more because...
Well, yeah, I mean, I think everyone will struggle in the same way if they're up against it time-wise and they haven't got the time, which is obviously where we would come in to actually just be able to introduce them to the right people, not wasting time on all of the kind of random interviews that are unreliable.
Yeah. So you're talking about, when you talk about unreliable, you're talking about quality of candidates as well?
That's exactly, yeah. And so, we are proud of the ones that we work with, the network that we have, but as well as the way that we will say no to clients, and we will also not continue to just put people forward who aren't committed as well, because obviously we have to be proud of the people we introduce for jobs, not just the ones that we introduce people to. So it's two ways.
And you used the word reliable many times. Is that a very important word for you or for the business?
Well, it's it's hard to find people who are committed, that are genuinely committed to a job, because there's a lot of I might do something for a bit, and obviously we can't allow for that. We can't sort of have the kind of casual, I'll see, maybe, introduce me to them. And I'm like, oh no, I do want the job, but the job's the job. And so it's hard to find career people in quite a lapsy-daisy part of the industry, which is very cool. I'm just going to do some pop-ups. I'm just going to do some stuff. I'm just going to temp. And so I think people really rely on us to be able to bring someone who's a genuine career chef or a genuine career manager that they can rely on 2 or 3 or 4 years down the line, which actually most of our introductions are incredibly long-standing from before COVID, throughout COVID, really good, important operations managers. GMs have gone in to be operations managers, chefs who've joined and are now execs or business partners. So yeah, it's important.
What is like in today's world of hospitality? This is a question that came up right now. As you're saying, it's like if I'm like a candidate and I want to go and work now I'm on your website, I'm listening to this, I'm on the website, I say, oh, those clients, no, they work with these guys. I would love to get a job. So what are you looking for? Because I guess there's like a first filter. What kind of candidate do you need to be to not get a no?
It's like, honestly, once the first filter is that they follow us and they've applied, because that just means that they're engaged with our point. So like the fact that they're on our website in the first place means, unlike Indeed, that's the filtering process sort of.
You're not on Indeed, just to
No, we are not anymore on anything, actually. Yes, not long since I could definitely say that after one by one dropping the other options to the point where my marketing manager swooped in and allowed it to be solely our website. So the filtering process is that you've come to home in the first place, because that already means that you care about what we care about, which is good. And then essentially what happens, normally people don't always apply for a specific job. They just come to us for a discovery chat about what is next for me. People are absolutely lost at the moment, I feel. What on earth can this industry offer me long term? I'm the dreaded coming up to 30 or some like mad age that people feel like is old. And where do I go from here? What can my career look like? How can I join somewhere that's balanced, that I can have both, like what I need from a career in the industry? How did you do what you do? What's next for me? And at that stage, then, given what we know that they are good at, what they're passionate about, and what they do and don't want, we will then say, well, these are the things we have, rather than kind of any characteristics that they need. But if you're asking what people are looking for in employees now, the CV, I can't speak for everyone, but the CV is relatively unimportant if they're coming with willingness, enthusiasm, and like passion for the industry still. If they still maintain some sort of passion and they have a willingness and an enthusiasm and they care and a bit of commitment wouldn't go amiss, then those characteristics and they're willing to train them basically on lots of other areas.
And you said the age 30, like is that really a concern for people when they get 30, if there's opportunities for them? It's
about getting out of service. Service word, it's the swear word it's the how do I get out of service, which means no evenings and weekends, all the pressures of service. It differs. It could just simply, people just talk about work-life balance and say, okay, what does that mean for you? The number of hours, the type of shift, like is it the evenings or the weekend? Is it the stress of service? And they just go, oh, it's all of them. I don't even know. There's the pent up stress that service brings to people that I feel like it's 30 is the age. It's like I'm going to be 30 next year. So I need to make my plan of how do I, at least if I'm not going to get out of service now, how do I get into a business where I can see a path away from late nights and evenings and weekends? And, I just feel like it's getting earlier and earlier. You know, people say mad things like, I'm nearly 26 and I just, I can't do this anymore. And just think, oh God, that is just crazy. It's super young. And of course, the problem is that so many restaurants push people far beyond what they should. And therefore the stress of service becomes unfeasible at a much younger age. And, I gave up a lot of my weekends in my 20s. That was part of life. But other people now don't want to do that. They want to see friends and family and they want at least 1 or 2 weekends off a month so that they can make plans and do things. And good for them, I reckon, actually, to be honest. I have to say good for people to stand up for that. And then businesses are making allowances for that. Genuinely busy weekend focused businesses that are heaving at the weekends that we work with still make an effort to make sure that everyone has at least 1 weekend a month off every month. Yeah. And it's like, despite the fact it's really busy.
It's very funny you say that, because when I was ops director, that was actually the goal for any full-time employee, because they were very busy weekend establishment. There were cafes when people were off. That's where they went. have the breakfast, brunch, and whatever. And when you didn't hit that target, that was a really good number to measure.
Yeah.
And you could see that on your scheduling. You could start seeing either turnover rate slowly at some point because there was not enough staff for whatever the reason. Oh, we didn't want that great server not to be at work because it will hit the revenue.
Yeah.
You could see straight away turnover starts, and they think the grass is greener because the pressure is so high. And that was way before. I don't know enough about the front line because I haven't been in it post-pandemic. But I could imagine the pressure is extreme from when I'm looking as a customer and an ex-operator.
That's it. But, it needn't be. I mean, obviously the stresses post-COVID in service have been lack of team or like the junior team joining without experience. So therefore the more senior ones are taking the hit. That's definitely been a problem. But we are now getting ourselves to a place where it needn't be. And also one thing I never understand is that the pay is so phenomenal for some people now in my world. Like their sous chef will be paid 60k in a restaurant now, a sous chef, but work 60 hours, like have to work 60 hours. And it's like, yeah, well, that's part of it. You get 60k, so just get on with it. But like, why not just give them 40k and 40 hours? People don't, there isn't a desire to earn more and more money from everyone. Some people, yeah, but it's balance is just it just feels like potentially there's just some other way, but there's a lot of kind of this is how we've always done it still, loads of that.
It's interesting when you say give them 60k and then 60 hours, because then you get to, like, one of the things I want to talk with you about leads very much into that. I think it leads to burnout because 60 an hour in a kitchen is hard work.
Yeah, I mean, more than, come in at 8, start the prep, leave at 1 a.m, never seen daylight, no break, but not enough of a break. It's really common still, not at all uncommon in this. But, there's also, I always want to point out that there's actually lots of people that enjoy that, would rather squeeze their long hours into 3 or 4 days instead. And there's actually, this industry is perfect for everyone in the sense that there should be that flexibility to do less or more. But yeah, as a standard, chefs are still working phenomenal long doubles in a row. Just like 8 shifts a week is still really common. Yeah. But also being paid really brilliantly. And actually people are like, I don't need that pay. I just want less pay and less hours.
Interesting. So you hear that from candidates.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. That's a good lesson.
There's some serious salaries flying around right now.
Yeah, I know.
For like service focused, willing, good chefs. Yeah. And
there's not enough of chefs still. That's what you're saying then, in between. Like, is that one of the places where there still is a gap? Like good chefs, well-trained chef?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like I just lucky to talk to so many excellent chefs day in, day out. There's plenty of them. But, many female chefs are hitting I'm nearly 30, I need a plan out of the kitchen. So, the female kitchen progression is non-existent. You have to get out once you either want to have a family or have got a family, because you can't make it work necessarily very easily. But also there's lots of chefs that want out, and they're like, catering is a big part of it now. Like, maybe I'll do catering. Like really good restaurant chefs that love restaurants are like, okay, I'll just do catering then, because it's essentially a bit more daytimey, and they get their weekend, and it's like, oh, you don't even want this. You're doing it out of pure necessity or just, and it's a shame. And so if we could just the perfect working week can still look really balanced. Like you still do 2 evenings a week, couple of days, you can still have a double, but as long as it's a normal, reasonable double, and have like 1 weekend off a week. I mean, other people will listen to this and say, that's mad, I couldn't do that. But everything can be done if you put your mind to it.
And you see clients doing
that. Yeah.
Do you think actually that people are burning out is one of the biggest, impactful thing for our reputation in a negative way? Because there is a lot of negativity, as you say, about working in the industry. It's not, if you work in a fancy restaurant, it might be a Michelin restaurant, there might be some glamour around it, but in principle, working in this industry is not something you do as a career anymore. That's like what I hear a lot of people say, especially the younger member of my family. They're not really seeking, even if we are a hospitality family, they're definitely seeking away from that into consultancy and all kind of banking and all kind of jobs.
Well, we obviously have this awful kind of heavy chef, shouty reputation from an external perspective. But yeah, burnout is often, we hear burnout every day. I'm burnt out. I don't even know if I don't really understand the definite. I know what it is written down, but at what point is it burnout? Or at what point have you just heard? It must be so hard. This is what I think for management at the moment. Every day having people quitting because they're burnt out or they want weekends and evenings off, and just hearing that around you day in, day out, and you have to recruit for that person that's burnt out. It just must be so tiring. And so I feel like people just think I'm burnt out because basically I've had enough and I can't go back and I'm done. And actually, I feel like certain parts of the industry need to catch up and understand how to build better balance and have it. But actually, Michelle Roux spoke on a podcast this week, which I found really interesting, because he said that, we absolutely need to offer less hours for chefs now. He said, there's chefs in Greasy Spoons and then there's chefs in Michelin Star. You don't have to go in the Michelin Star. You could go in to be a pizza chef or whatever. And actually, the hardcore ones will stick in Michelin Star. And I was thinking, well, why does that need to be that even hardcore? Why can't it all just be more balanced? The worst things about the industry for most people is the physical aspect, like the physical graft, because obviously once you've finished your really busy service, you then have to clean your entire section down. It's actually really physical, more physical than many other jobs, and it's all evening and weekend heavy, and it's kind of a bit archaic in many ways and quite hardcore still. And so the one way that we can actually offer that balance is back in hours, like give some hours back, like number of hours. And I think, still to offer 48 hours as a standard, as a minimum, basically, is what's happening. Still, 48 hours is standard. Should be 40, like every other industry should be 40, because then at least you might be doing 44 instead of 52, 54, whatever.
Do you also think that's one of the, if you had a matching wand, was that one of the things you wanted to change in the industry, take them from 48 to 40 hour contract? Yeah,
and that's really common now, 40-hour contract with good businesses. And it gives you that buffer that I might do 44 or 45. But at the moment, the 60-hour week is really still prevalent and common. And so we need to bring down the starting point to 40, which, I say that to friends and family that work in finance. And they're like, what do you mean 40 is a good change? Because that's standard. Like, obviously my mum's always worked in the NHS. She's 37 and a half. But obviously that has its own challenges. So it's not, but 48 hours coming in to start with is just a really high start mark, because it's only going to go up from there, unfortunately. To be reasonable, because no one's actually really knocking off hours from contracted, I find.
And you talked before about, the women, they're approaching 30s, and therefore they're also, some of them, not all, but maybe wish to have families. Some of them get families, and that's been my experience. And then they sometimes come back for a very short period, then they're gone again. And you wrote like a very nice blog on this, especially around the kitchen. How do we actually get, and you talked about the pipeline into the female chefs in the kitchen. What is the challenge here? Because there's no doubt about, everybody talks about they want more female, want more diversity, all that, especially in leadership jobs, especially into the exec job, but also in the kitchen. But what is the challenge here? What is happening? What stories do you hear? Because people come and share their personal story. I know that from the recruitment world.
Yeah.
Guys.
Well, it's, they can't, it's first thing is you can't see anyone else. You're like desperately trying to look for other female leaders in kitchens that have got families, that have children. I mean, and it's like, well, I clearly can't work. Clearly, that's what I'm seeing around me, is that the only famous or certainly highly regarded female chefs I know don't have children. And that seems to be quite, in the media, or certainly in our part of the industry. And so it's just a bit of like, well, I'm going to have to leave. There's certain ways that you can make kitchens or hospitality businesses warm places for pregnant women. Unfortunately, we do have an issue that we can't afford to pay additional maternity pay. We just can't, like another private sector business can, or it's actually public sector, which does the best, 100% pay for a year, or good pay for a year. And so we have that initial problem, and actually that's not something that I would even say we could start to try to afford, because it's just impossible. And so housing women in their pregnancy, finding them something else to do may well actually, something less physical may well actually get you a number of months or years when they come back from their maternity, making them safe places for mums to, Asma Khan, the chef, she does the best example of her kitchen is full of mums only. and they all go for the school pickup at different times, and she manages shifts. She says it's not rocket science, it's easy. It's like literally just work around the different women and their needs, because they make the best employees. And I just need to get in the kitchen and understand more about how that works, because it seems like she makes light work of it. But you have to make them obviously female-friendly environments from a ego and cultural point of view. You know, having more women in there already to feel like it's a female-friendly place. But also things like allowing people set times to leave, because pregnancy doesn't allow for customers who are messing around late and sitting at their table and things like that. There needs to be that real level of non-negotiable, I need to leave at this time. And that's what is hard about hospitality. We don't have it's all that loose. You can't always
control demand.
You can't always do that. But in this instance, if you give someone the absolute guaranteedness that they can leave at a certain time for 2 years or 3 years till their kids go to school, or they get maybe you'll get long-term out of them if they've seen how you've completely taken care of them for a long time. But we really do need mums and older parents, basically, or not older, actually, my age. That's all I mean, nearly 40 in our business, because actually I was thinking about the people who I've enjoyed working with the most. And when I was 21 as a GM, in my first experience, my favourite people I've ever worked with have been those older women. I had a KP who was in her 50s. She felt really old to me at 21, but she really wasn't, probably wasn't even 50. But you just need those levelers, those kind of grounded, mature, reliable, actually far more reliable than some of the young people that
wisdom as well. As
the wisdom, the seen it all, done it all. You know, they're just like, I needed that. And they were like motherly figures to me at the time as a young manager navigating all of that stuff. And actually my best employees have been those older women, actually. And so that's why we really do need them.
Yeah, and I guess also they put an element into the workforce of the team that the young people can't do, because they just experience life. As you say, they experience life, they have the good and the bad about life, and they can sometimes actually sort out problems that they don't need a manager to solve, because they're just there.
Grown-ups.
They put their hands on their grown-ups in principle. What have, in your own, like building your own business over the last 6 years is now, but what is like in the last 3 years specifically, what have you learned as a business owner? Because you've grown the team as well. You've gone from one-man band, you call them, to a team. Mm-hmm. What have been the most significant learnings in building that? In COVID, I did a lot of comparison. You know, I think a lot of people did when you're sitting around with not a lot to do, comparing yourself to everyone else, and just feeling like, oh, they're all doing so well, and and I'm not, and I think that was really a negative in my mind about comparing myself to not necessarily recruitment. To be honest, it's more about other people within our industry who were succeeding or actually out of our industry. Instagram's got a lot to answer for when you're feeling low, when you're staring at everyone else's success. So don't compare. And also to not, I think actually I built this business in recruitment completely by luck, in the sense that was never an intended area of mine. And I'd never worked in recruitment before, ever, other than the fact I'd done a lot of my own recruitment in operations and management. And I think that's the benefit of actually why I think people want to work with me, because I don't know any of the words that other recruiters use. And I think I've really noticed that if I listen to a recruitment podcast or something, I think, maybe I should tune into my industry, and I suddenly realize I don't know any of the words that are being used. I've never worked in a corporate recruitment or any recruitment business, and so I think that's important, is you do you, basically. Just continue doing you and try to, if you're good at what you do, then you don't need to worry about what everyone else is doing, and be a leader in your own way. So don't compare, and just do things in your own way and stick to your values. What do you think it is that you do that a traditional recruitment company don't do? What is that? Is that a thing? Is there multiple things?
It's just it's more about quantity over quality, and I think it's more of a numbers business, from what I can understand with the big corporate. It's they've got targets, and we don't have any targets, and they have it's about commission and placing people, and I think something called billers, which I don't know what that is, but and it's difficult and cutthroat, and it's sales, which is not what we do. So it's just coming at things from a different, and BDMs, a lot of recruitment agencies need to drive business, and luckily, again, I've touched on wood lots of times, but we don't need to do any business development because people come to us. So, that's sort of, it's the other way around. We're not out trying to sell ourselves. We are allowing people to come to us, and we can pick and choose. So
I don't know if I'm right, because my job is to listen to people. I can hear, my view is almost like you see people as they are, you see them as the human.
Yeah.
And you find that potential and you build that bridge between the employer and the recruitment. So that was like mine when I was sitting and listening, because I've also talked with a lot of recruitment people and used a lot of them. But it seems like you're trying to see people as they really are. And that's really how people want to be seen, and thereby become much more human than a business kind of thing. But again, in the end of the day, it's a business.
Exactly. And sometimes when you discourage someone from taking a job, it might be like, do you know what, this job's not, they'll get all the way, they'll get the offer, and they're wobbling, and we just have to say, I think you shouldn't take this. I really think you shouldn't take it, and we all agree. And it's like been hard to have got that far, but we've actually pulled them out of it, and they don't. That is really hard, but because financially, you're like, oh God, that was a lot of work we put into that. But anyway, we'll start again because we know that wasn't right. And actually, you always come back to knowing that you made the right decision, and people do the same thing. And people appreciate that as well. A lot of people say, I really want that to go for this job. And we'll say, it's really not right for you. Trust me. Just trust me on this. It's not what you want. You'll be burnt out again, or it won't be the right avenue. It won't get you where you want to be. And so, it will always come back to being commercially the right decision in the end, I'm sure.
The right thing is the right thing.
The right thing's the right thing, yeah.
I wanted to ask you about, you talked a lot about balance before. And one of my questions is always about how do you actually, show up pro, I call it. But how do you ensure your balance? Because you're very much about the team, the 4 days. Are you practicing these things yourself? Are you as good as what's written down?
Not yet, I've got to be honest. That's my next task. Lily, my most recent team member who's joined us, is all part of the grand plan to regain my 4-day week and to have an upcoming holiday pretty soon, which is the true actual switch off, which will be the first time in my 6 years running the company. I will completely switch off. And so no, if I'm being honest, I don't practice anything that I preach. And it's all part of my personal next step. But yeah, I'm rubbish at it, to be honest. I don't have any boundaries, and it's probably a problem. I really need to exercise some of that. That's what Madeline is wonderful with me at, and we're on a path. But I still feel that need. I think it's something in you with hospitality to support your team. They might need me, or just you were talking about the business knowing it's off on a Friday. There's still that nagging guilt that is that a problem for people, or will they go elsewhere? But actually, it's fine.
It's fine.
It's really fine.
As long as there's the boundaries and there's clear expectation setting. So I agree. So that's super interesting, because that's very honest as well. And thank you for sharing that. What would your top advice be to leaders that want to build a great hospitality business?
Well, it depends on the style of business. If it's a supplier, which is what I am, then the first 2 or 3 years was particularly hard for me, because I was already completely starting up on my own after quite a big knock when I got made redundant from my last job. And the first 2 or 3 years were really hard, because then COVID hit, and so even I just started to feel like I was making some progress. But it wasn't until I started to really communicate the values that the business has, or what I had. Actually, I was on my own, it was just me. Until I started to communicate those values and then actually stand by them, that people would start to take notice of us. And we would start, initially I was just sending cold messages on LinkedIn and would have worked with anyone, basically, because I was a startup of my own. And it wasn't until so I heard another business owner say that they don't work with certain people, that really inspired me to actually try to stand by things at the detriment to the bottom line, for sure. But I just said, there is a full circle bit where actually that will come back. And I think there's been times when you think, I can't believe I've just said no to working with them. They're very cool. They're really, really cool business, but they're crap with people. So I'm going to stand by it. But that hurt. Because I know that people will just go and work for them anyway, which is one of the most difficult things with our job. But stick with what you believe in, And then in the end, and same with any sort of food, drink suppliers, any other, it's sort of like actually your unwavering values will allow you to succeed in the end, I think.
Yeah, and I think you said very well. One of my advice I got a long time ago is that, decide for yourself what your values are, what's right and wrong, and stick with that, because that will serve you. You get the right customers, you get the right traction and all that. What is the one question you wished I've asked you? I didn't ask you, but what would the question be, and what would the answer be?
That's a really good question. God, I suppose maybe, I can't think of one really. I forgot to get on this one ready, so I haven't got an answer for that.
I have one for you.
Okay, great.
Why home? The name home?
Oh, okay. Well, I feel like it's self-explanatory in the sense that you're finding people new homes, which is genuinely I feel like we found people good homes, places that they genuinely feel at home and are looked after. And it's short and snappy and feels warm. And I hope to think that's what people would say about us.
Great. Where should people connect with you if they want to ask you questions?
We're pretty Instagram heavy, but obviously LinkedIn is there too.
Yeah.
For the more business.
Okay, good. We'll put it all in the show notes for people to find you. Thank you so much for coming to Brighton and doing the interview.
Yeah, thank you very much, Michael.